ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। So in the last class, we were studying the 56th sloka, the 56th verse of the second chapter of Shrimad Bhagavad Gita. It's answer to the Arjuna's question as to the conduct of one of steady wisdom, the one who is sthita pragya, the one who is established in wisdom. What's his way of conduct? In the 55th sloka, Bhagavan described the one who is immersed, the sthita pragya, who is immersed in samadhi. So what's the characteristics that describes the state of one who is immersed in samadhi? And from the 56th sloka onwards, Bhagavan is going to describe the one who is in samadhi when he comes down from the state of samadhi. Then he interacts with the world. So what's his conduct? How he sits, how he talks, how he moves around. So all those questions Arjuna asked. So from the 56th, as in the last class we saw, that the conduct of a man of steady wisdom in gist was described by Bhagavan Krishna. So before we proceed, we just have a short recapitulation of that sloka. What's that sloka? Dukkheshvanu dvignamana sukheshu vigatas priyaha vitaraga bhayakrodha sthitadhir muniruchyate dukkheshu anudvigna manaha. The one who is not perturbed by adversity. Sukheshu vigata spriyaha. So who does not long for happiness, yearn for happiness. So it's not that when happiness is in life, he runs away from it. It's okay, but he doesn't seek it, trying to always get some opportunity to have some enjoyment. So that yearning has fallen off. So he has no longing for happiness. Sukheshu vigata spriya. Vita raga bhaya krodha. So raga means attachment, bhaya, fear, krodha, anger. So one for whom attachment, fear, and anger has become vita, means past. So that means one who is free from attachment, fear, and anger. Such a person, he has to be muni, mananshila, sthitadhir muni ruchyate. It's only a person who is contemplative can attain this state. And when he has attained this state, he is being termed as a person of steady wisdom. So he is not perturbed by adversity, who does not long for happiness, who is free from attachment, fear, anger. So he is called a muni of steady wisdom, a contemplative person who has a steady wisdom. So to understand this sloka, in the last class, we resorted to the idea of pancha klesha as has been enunciated in yoga and Sankhya philosophy. So there are the 5 afflictions which afflicts us in our life. The cause of all the afflictions is avidya, ignorance. What is the ignorance? That somehow we forgot our real nature, that I am that pure conscious principle, eternal, without any wants. I am always in my pure innate state, ever blissful. But somehow I identified because of ignorance with the flow called body-mind complex, this psychophysical existence, where the self is as if being reflected. And I take the reflection to be real, and I identify myself with that reflection. So this, because of ignorance, because of avidya, this identification of the self with the psychophysical existence is results in asmita. The ego develops from there. The sense of this me and mine. So this develops because of that ignorance. From that comes raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. The last three afflictions. Raga means attachment, dvesha, hatred, abhinivesha is too much clinging to life creates a fear of death. So this, again, we find that how it comes. The moment I get identified with the psychophysical existence, I want to enjoy the eternity in the psychophysical existence, which is never possible. But this eternal yearning to enjoy the eternity in the psychophysical existence, where the self has been reflected as asmita, results in raga. That whatever is favorable for my psychophysical existence, for its existence, I am drawn towards it. I am attached towards it, that's a raga. Whatever is not favorable for it, I respond to it in the form of fight and flight response. I try to get rid of it. That speaks of all my dvesha, my hatred for the things which is not favorable for my psychophysical existence. And some of the detrimental factors for my limited existence is too powerful. I cannot get rid of them. I myself have to run away from them. That speaks of abhinivesha. So raga is attachment. Now from dvesha arise all anger. So as in a primitive society, if I have for my own sustenance have gathered some food, and someone comes and wants to steal it away from me. So naturally, it is a detrimental factor for my existence. I have gathered the food, someone comes and tries to snatch it away from me. So I develop a hatred which finds expression as rage, anger, krodha. So from dvesha comes krodha. And if the one who is going to snatch away the food from me, I know is extremely powerful, or maybe it is a predator, I am in danger. I may not be able to cope up with that person or with that predator. What I do, I run away from it out of fear. So abhinivesha, too much clinging to life, results in bhaya. So now in this sloka, we find the phrase which comes in the second line, Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha. Raga is understood. After that comes Bhaya. Bhaya is because of abhinivesha. Krodha because of dvesha, which again is because of all these three are again because of the asmita, that my limited sense of individuality, which again is caused by avidya, ignorance. So who is Sthitadhir? Whose wisdom is established and he's equipoised? The one for whom the avidya has vanished. Avidya has fallen off. It has obliterated. When the avidya gets obliterated, naturally, its evolute, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, is bound to be annihilated. If not fully annihilated at the beginning, we find it is attenuated and at last to be annihilated altogether. So as raga, dvesha, abhinivesha gets attenuated to be obliterated altogether in the due course, naturally, this raga, bhaya, krodha, and bhaya, that also has to obliterate. Because once I get established in myself, what can make me fear? As Swami Vivekananda used to say, the story of a realized soul who is to stay in a forest on the opposite bank of the Ganges, of the river. There's a village. On one side is the village, on the other side it was a deep forest. And this sage used to stay in that forest. If anyone by chance went to meet him, he will find he is in deep contemplation, and within himself he is constantly chanting, Soham, Soham. I am that, I am that. Being established as he is a Muni, he is deeply contemplative. In his contemplation, that realization has dawned, the ignorance has fallen off, that he is one with the self. He is the Atman, he is the Brahman. So his Soham is chanting. And even from the opposite bank of the river, the chant could be heard, especially when there was no noise, when the village has calmed down at night and other times, they could hear the chant coming from the other side of the river. And one day it so happened, the lion attacked that sage, and it caught hold of him and started dragging him deep inside the forest. So the villagers knew that he is going to be killed, he is going to be devoured. But the most astonishing thing is, till the last moment, the lion was dragging him deep inside the forest. Till his breath, his last. They found that he could never be in any way deviated from his contemplation, distracted from his contemplation, deviated from his conviction. The chant could still be heard by the villagers. Soham, Soham. Till the last breath, the chant was going on. That speaks of Vita, Raga, Bhaya, Krodha. So all the Dvesha, as he is established in the self, there is no question of anger. When Swami Vivekananda was with Pawhari Baba of Ghazipur, a realized soul, Swamiji used to relate a very wonderful incident in the life of Pawhari Baba, that a thief came to steal from his kutia. So he has stolen some, this utensils, and he was running. He was running away, and when suddenly Pawhari Baba noticed him, and it is Pawhari Baba who started chasing him. And at last, when he was caught, the thief thought most probably that Pawhari Baba is very angry and he's going to give him to the police, or maybe he is going to be humiliated. But just the opposite. He told that you have actually left out a few of the things. So you may need it. So please take this also. When the dog used to come and snatch away the bread, he will also run after him, not to take away, not to just hit the dog, to give the remaining portion which was left out. In the gospel, there is a story that during the time of mutiny, a sage was very badly injured, very badly beaten by the soldiers. The soldiers came and has this very badly tortured the sage, and the sage was almost on the verge of death. He collapsed, And by the time the soldiers has already left, the villagers came in. They had a huge respect for this sage, saint. So when they came, already he was almost beaten to death. He was about to breathe his last. When these villagers were extremely angry that how come that such a person who is in no way harmful to anyone, who is always at peace with himself, that such a person should be in any way disturbed, should be beaten. And so they asked, just let us know who did it. We will take the revenge. If needed, we will go and just go and attack those soldiers. We want that revenge because they had tremendous respect for that sage. And he asked, all the villagers asked, just let me know that who did it. And as the sage was about to breathe his last, one of the villagers was feeding him some water, liquid. He was to quench his thirst. He was feeling thirsty. He was quenching his thirst. And this sage replied, what is replied? The one who is at present feeding me the water, is nourishing, is just pouring water in my throat. It is the same one who has bitten me. So what's the idea? He's established in the self, and he sees the same self in everyone. So he has reached the state of that non-duality, that the same existence is there everywhere. When anything good happens to me, that also comes from the Lord. When anything bad happens to me, that also is from the Lord. The Lord alone has become the universe. So, kako nindo, kako pujo, kako nindo dono palla bhari. So, this is both this anything good, anything bad, whatever happens, everything is because of the Lord. So all the anger has fallen off as he is established in the self. All anger has fallen off. All attachment has fallen off. Whom to attach? Because he is established in the self, which is ever blissful. He needs nothing. He is beyond all wants. He is beyond all fear. We are all anger. So such a person, how can he be perturbed by dukkha? Because from all the obsession, raga, the yearning for happiness comes. And from all krodha and bhaya, which are the product of dvesha and abhinivesha, results in dukkha, suffering. So one from whom the raga, krodha, bhaya, this obsession, anger, and fear, that has fallen off. There cannot be any cause for suffering. So he has gone beyond dukkha. So he's not perturbed by any adversity. He doesn't yearn for any happiness, doesn't long for happiness. Sukheshu vigata spriha. How is it possible? Because he's vita raga bhaya krodha. For whom it is possible? The one who is sthitadhi, who is established in his self. How is it possible? By becoming muni, by contemplative, by constantly contemplating on the real nature. And such a person is known as the one who is sthitadhi muni ruchyate. So that's how we find Krishna has started enunciating the characteristics of a person established in his wisdom. So that was the 56th. It was in general he described. Now, that how does he sit? How does he move around? How does he speak to others? So all those things will be described. So next, that how does he converse with others? What's his conversation? So that will be described in the 57th sloka. So we will take up that sloka. What's that? Yah sarvatran anabhisneha tat tat prapya shubha shubham na abhinandati na dveshti tasya pragya pratishtita. Yah sarvatran anabhisneha. This word anabhisneha is very important. It needs bit explanation. In general, we can say that who has, as such, who is beyond all sorts of infatuation, has no attachment for anything, anywhere. It's a general translation. What this term exactly means, we will come to it. The one who is having no attachment to anything, anywhere, he's a real sannyasi. The word sannyasi means samyak nyasa sannyasa. Nyasa means renunciation. Samyak means in totality. The one who have renounced everything in totality, samyak nyasa, is sannyasa. So a sannyasi alone can be anabhisneha. But this again, this word sannyasi doesn't mean any particular way of life. It speaks of total detachment. It can happen even to a householder. It need not have to change the mode of life. It is a total mental orientation. So here is with the word, this anabhisneha is very interesting word. So first, let us have the literal translation. The one who has no attachment for anything, anywhere. And as a result, what happens? Tat tat prapya shubha shubham. As he has no attachment, whether anything good happens, shubha, or ashubha. As per the situations of life, sometimes something may be good, something may be evil. But as he has gone beyond all the attachments, so there is no question of praise or hatred. Na abhinandati, na tveshti. And when such a thing happens, know it for certain by seeing that external sign. There are two things in these two words in Sanskrit: sasangvedya, parasangvedya. Sasangvedya. When I have realized myself, I know what I have realized. That cannot be in any way explained to others. Just say that when a small child who cannot speak, it starts crying, the mother knows that the child is hungry. Can the mother feel the hunger? No. Just seeing the child crying, the external sign, she knows that the child is hungry. And when the child is fed, it starts playing, smiling and playing. The mother knows now it is satiated. So there are two things. Parasangvedya is the external sign that the child is crying, or when the child is happy, playing around. All those signs show that the child is now satiated. He has stopped crying, he's playing. Or that when he's in hunger, he's crying, or the child is crying. But the real hunger that the mother can never feel, that's the thing which the child is feeling. That is sasangvedya, your own inner feeling. So for one who is a realized soul, the inner feeling, that is something that belongs to that person. I can never relate to that. But what are the signs and symptoms, parasang, that which by seeing which I can understand that he has went to that realization. So here, all the things which has been spoken of is parasangvedya. What? By the signs and symptoms, seeing which I can realize that he has the realization within. So these are the signs and symptoms. That he never praises anyone, even when he's flattered. He has all the things favorable for him by someone. He is not all praise for him. And when his interest is trampled upon, he never even hates, because he has gone beyond all attachment as well as all sorts of this infatuation. So there's a difference between love and infatuation. Now we will try to understand. In Bhagavad Gita, the words are very important. The word anabhisneha is a catch point in this sloka. Now, anabhisneha. An pratyaya is used to negate. So, what it is negating? Abhisneha. Abhisneha means infatuation. Those who have the Sanskrit background or even any of the Indian language background, in most of the Indian languages, you will find the word sneha. It is a derivative from Sanskrit, which means love. Sneha is good. Bhagavan is not saying that you shouldn't have sneha. You should have sneha. But what you should not have is abhisneha. Throughout the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, these prefixes are very important. If you understand the prefix, the total meaning changes. Sneha is good. Bhagavan is not saying that you shouldn't have sneha, the love the mother has for the child. It's selfless love. That is good. Abhisneha is infatuation. So Bhagavan, instead of saying that asneha, he's saying anabhisneha. Sneha is selfless love. Thinking oneself as the instrument of the divine, when you take care of the loved ones without expectations in return. That speaks of sneha. When the mother is loving the child, if she is aware of the fact the child is, that the love which I am showering on the child is not me. God has implanted that love in my heart, in the mother's heart, to take care of his creation. It's not only me, it's not my credit. All the mothers are bound to love. What to speak of human, even in the animals. The young one has to be taken care of. What to speak of mother, even a stranger when sees a small child. A parental love wells up naturally, though they have no blood relation. But what it speaks of, that we are being constituted that way. That whenever we see a small one, the young one, who is totally dependent on someone else, that love do wells up. And that love is something which is implanted, which speaks of our altruistic genes. It is something as a divine plan, it is there. So when I become an instrument. Once I'm aware that love is something which is in my heart, I have to act as per it. There's no question of doership. I am not the owner of that love. I don't own that love. That is there, implanted by God in my heart. So I'm just an instrument through whom God is working. By implanting that love in my heart, it is He who is working through me. So I do what I have to do. I take care of without any expectation in return or without any projection of my will. That sometimes we say, I expect nothing from the child, but just I want that he should be established. And then I find I have already I have my own wish, my desires, that thing I'm projecting on the loved one. And that's how there's a very, very thin line between sneha and abhisneha. Abhisneha is infatuation. We project our likes, dislikes, ambitions on the another person and want them to fulfill our expectations. And that causes all the suffering. But my love is there, because of my love, I am there to nurture a seed. If the seed is of a mango tree, it will become a mango tree. If it is of some other, it's an papaya tree, it will become papaya. So whatever the seed, I cannot get a mango plant from a papaya seed. So everyone is born as per their past tendencies, as per their accumulated samskaras of the past birth. The parent is just the channel through which that child came. The mother and father is not created that child. This child is just came through them. It's God's. Everyone is God's. We are just the caretaker. We can nourish them. And that also nourishing is also not from my own resource. The resource is also God. The love which is in my heart It is God which has implanted in my heart. With that love, I nourish. And there it ends. As per his samskara, what he becomes, that he shouldn't in any way now disturb me. So now you will understand the difference between sneha and abhisneha. So why Bhagavan, instead of saying that you should not have that inordinate love for others. So if you would have said asneha, it speaks of a hard-hearted person. There are few human brutes who have no love for others. The psychopath, somehow their emotional center doesn't get connected with their perceptual centers. It's a clinical condition. There are psychopaths who feel no love for anyone. These are aberrations. In the creation, aberrations do happen. In default mode, in general, the love is something which is common. But there are few who are heartless. Is God asking us to become something like that? No. Sneha is good. Otherwise, he would have said asneha. He is not saying asneha. He is saying anabhisneha. Abhisneha is bad, not sneha. So get rid of abhisneha. How? By not projecting your, when I project my likes and dislikes, when I think that I am the one who is loving him or her, it is I am who is nourishing him. So I expect that whatever my wish is, that person should fulfill, but should desire. That extended desire. The parents' desires gets extended and projected sometimes on the children. And that causes the suffering. That's the infatuation. So where you have to go beyond this abhisneha. How is it possible? When we are always aware of the fact that I am just a mere instrument in the hand of the divine. That I, as the self, when get identified with this psychophysical existence and start operating in this so-called phenomenal existence, I am as if an instrument in the hand of the divine. He is working through me for the sustenance of his own creation. He's working through me. So that's the pragya, that's the knowledge in which when one is established, he goes beyond abhisneha. And when that happens, he is no more bothered about shubha or shubha. What is the outcome of all the way I am nourishing? I am trying to upbring my children or someone who is dependent on me, and whatever may be the outcome, it may be good, it may be ashubha. I am not all praise, or neither I hate, na abhinandati, na dveshti. So tatyat prapya shubha shubham, na abhinandati, na dveshti. What it says, the results of anabhisneha. If you are not infatuated, then what happens? You will never censor someone because he has not met your expectation. That is ashubha. And you are not going to just be all praise for the person who has met your just expectation. Why? That because of abhisneha, whenever the loved one does something as per our expectation, what happens? We praise them. And all the weaknesses get, why we praise them? It's not that he's all good. We all have the good elements as well as the negative elements in our personality. When we get infatuated by others, when the two young one meets, the boy and the girl, and we find that they've fallen in love. When they've fallen in love, you will find both feel the other to be the projection of their own ideal. That my beloved should be such and such person. When they fall in love, they feel, yeah, he meets all those expectations that I have. What happens? That we all have just the way in our eyes, there are the blind spots. Our mind also has blind spots. When we are infatuated, there are all the negative things for that, the blind spot is there. They all get shadowed. Only the flowery, the things and the good things that only shines, not only shines spots, they becomes exaggerated. And we feel as if my ideal is being reflected there. So what is happening? That when you are full of happiness because you find everything is favorable, actually the negative signs are getting shadowed. All the weaknesses are getting shadowed. Only the positive traits are becoming noticeable, exaggerated. So that's why we are all praised for them. Abhinandana comes because of that type of infatuation. And when the loved one does not fulfill the expectation in the process, in our life, we find, when I start finding that my ideal is being not reflected as such, the negative traits now start coming up, becomes noticeable. And then we start intensely hating that person, dveshti. It's not that he's all bad. He or she is an admixture of good and evil like any other person. But as when I start hating him, it is why I start hating him, because my desires haven't been fulfilled. The cause of hatred is only that in our life we will find that what I expect from the other person, that hasn't been fulfilled. It's actually selfishness. All sorts of hatred emanates from selfishness. As it has not been fulfilled, now I start hating him. When I'm hating him, he is just an incarnate of evil, of Satan. Why it happens? Because all the goodness gets shadowed now. Our mind do have blind spots. So now you will understand that one who has gone beyond his sneha, shubha ashubha doesn't lead to abhinandana and or dvesha. He knows, he takes the person as it is. Your pragya, then only your pragya gets pratishtita. A man of steady wisdom neither praises nor hates. As he is not biased by self-love, he is aware of the fact that each and every life is molded by the circumstances. He takes them as it is. So instead of being judgmental, that all praise and hatred comes from judgment. So instead of being judgmental, he deals with others with compassion. And Sneha speaks of compassion. He deals with compassion. He is not totally indifferent. He deals with compassion, but not with infatuation. Just even we will say that there are situations where hatred is almost inevitable. Just take a very hardcore criminal. It's a serial killer. Is any way we can have compassion for that person? Just let us relate some instance. You will understand that a person who was a hardcore criminal in the jail was interviewed. He was a serial killer and naturally had to be behind the bars. In the interview, when it was asked that how come that you have developed this tendency, this criminal tendency, what he told was something very interesting, that he was brought up in some refugee camp because of this, in some war-infected belt. He was growing up. He had to run away from his own native place, and he was a refugee in the refugee camp. He was growing up where all were refugees. They were all from disturbed families. Disturbed society means the families also, because either their mother is not there, or the father has passed away. It was full of poverty. So that's how all the children were growing up. The environment was, the circumstance was not such where they could get some favorable circumstances to grow. So naturally they were by nature a bit violent. So this boy says that when I went to the school, when I was going to the school on my birthday, my father gave me a watch, presented me a watch. I was so happy, so proud of that watch. With that watch, I went to the school wearing that watch. And my senior, one of the seniors, started bullying, told, open the watch, give it to me. So naturally, why should I give? I objected, no, it's my watch. He told, give me the watch or I will stab in your wrist. I thought he's bullying. He doesn't mean what he says. But after 2-3 times insistence, he really took out a dagger from his bag and really stabbed. And in the hand, and that criminal says that I was profusely bleeding. I was scared. I thought I may bleed to death. I may die because of bleeding. I was so profusely bleeding. So I ran back to home, thinking that my parents will just give this emergency first aid, and take me to the doctor. The moment I reached my home and related the entire incident to my father, the father ran inside. I thought that most probably has gone to bring some first aid for me. Instead, he brought a dagger, his knife and took and just put it in my hand. And he told, go back to school and just stab the one who has stabbed you. So this is the environment in which I was growing up. Now just think, if I was in his position, can I with full assurance say that I would have been something different, or you would have been something different? So it is the circumstances which to a great extent determines what we are. Our samskaras gravitate us to a particular circumstance. That is also true. And that again, then that circumstance also again adds up to our samskara. This is cyclic. And sometimes we find that we are almost helpless. We have fallen on it. So now just think of that hardcore criminal. After knowing the background, can you still have the tremendous hatred, or because of that understanding, a compassion is bound to grow to a certain extent? Oh, he's an unfortunate one. He never got a very favorable circumstances to grow up. So instead of hating him, instead of punishing him, I would think of reformation. It is not the question of punishing. Why not try to reform by giving him a better environment? And sometimes we find that our tendencies become so deeply rooted that even if you give good environment, most probably he may again have the relapse. So he has to be kept beyond the bars. But that can be done with a different orientation, with compassion. Yes, he's beyond the bars. I'm not for punishing him. The basic needs of life still can be provided to him. But he shouldn't be in touch with the society, because he has developed that tremendous violent nature. Because of his past samskara, again, the thing may relapse. So he has to be behind the bars, but we need not punish him. So that's why you will find that the question of human rights comes even when you are dealing in the jail, even you are dealing with a very hardcore criminal. You just simply cannot go on thrashing him without any reason. Have compassion. Let him be behind the bars, because he may be a danger for the society. But still, the compassion can be there. I can deal with him with compassion. And that happens when in no way I am projecting my likes and dislikes to the other person and putting the tags, he's good, he's bad. This good, bad are all tags. We need not put it on others. Whenever we put these tags, know it for certain, in some way, my own selfishness is being reflected in whenever I'm putting the tags in any other person. So this speaks of that whenever in this life, when I'm established in the self, that is in one way to be equipoised, to be established in your wisdom. When I'm interacting with the world, always being aware of the fact that I'm just an instrument in the hands of the divine. Then also, you will find that in your interaction, the expectations are not growing. So the question of being all praise for someone who does something favorable to you, or when something unfavorable happens, you just becomes You just go on totally censoring that person. All those stops. So this speaks of the language, conversation, that Arjuna asks, that Sthitadhi kim prabhasheta, how he speaks. So for a man who is established in his wisdom, he just, whenever he's dealing with a person, he's in the present tense. He never brings the past, not the future, that what expectations I have from him, or what he has done previously, nothing. That's why they say, Shadhur Rag Joler Dag. The anger of a real saint is just like a mark on the water. It doesn't stay. You try to put a mark on the water, it's gone, immediately gone. Because he's always in the present. He's dealing with the person as he is. He never goes on putting tag of good and bad, because it is a sheer lie when I say, when someone has stolen something, and the moment I say he is a thief, it is an abject lie. It is speaking something untruth. Why it is untruth? Because no one is a thief. We are all the self. It is the self which in particular circumstances, when I am in association with my body-mind complex, I have acted in a particular way. But that doesn't define me. I can get rid of it. I can reform myself. As the self, I am always the pure, untainted one. There is no taint in it. As per the circumstances, when I'm in the psychophysical existence, all these acts happen out of ignorance, and when the ignorance is gone, again, I can come out of it. So when I say a thief, it is a lie. When out of anger, I say my child that you are stupid, it is a lie. In our scripture, they say, speak the truth, but always the pleasant truth, never the unpleasant truth. That why not the unpleasant truth? Because unpleasant truth is a lie. When you say a child, you are stupid, it is a lie. He is not a stupid. He is a nice fellow. He has acted in a stupid way. For that one particular moment, he has acted in a very way that is not desirable. So instead of saying you are stupid, I could have told him, you are a nice fellow. I have never expected such a thing from you. You will find the Bhagavad Gita starts with that type of statement. That Krishna is saying, Arjuna, that I never expected this type of behavior from you. So from where this kutastom kashmalamidam, samupe, this from where this infatuation came on you? You are such a brave person. I never understand that. So let's just see the difference. Instead of just saying that you are coward, this is what makes a lot of difference. So the man who is established in his wisdom, his way of speaking changes, because he is in no way, his selfish interest is in no way related to the happenings of life. If anything favorable happens, he is not pleased. If anything unfavorable happens, he is not disgusted. He takes the thing as it is. He is established in himself. He knows himself always to be the instrument in the hand of the divine. And he is acting here just as per the divine orders him. And there it ends. So there is no expectation. And as there is no expectation, there is no question of praise or censor, whether the situation is favorable or unfavorable. So here we find that Sthitadhi kim prabhasheta, how he speaks, that's being answered by Bhagavan in this sloka. So this sloka, just once more we read before we proceed to the next sloka. Yah sarvatran anabhisneha tat tat prapya shubha ashubham, shubha ashubham nabhinandati nadveshti tasya pragya pratishtita. So that's again just before going to the anabhisneha, is the word, is the catch point here. That Bhagavan is not saying that you shouldn't have sneha. Compassion is good. That is something which is implanted by the divine in our heart. Selfless love is good. Compassion is good. But what he's asking, you shouldn't have abhisneha. An is in the sense of negation. Abhisneha is infatuation. When I project my likes and dislike to the other person, thinking it to be love, it's not love, it's infatuation. So you shouldn't have that abhisneha. When you go beyond that abhisneha, and that is only possible when you are established in yourself, then only it's possible. Especially when you are aware of the fact that you are just the instrument in the hands of the divine. Why we are instrument? As again we say that the genes itself is altruistic. This word we should always remember, that the love with which we relate to the world, compassion, is something for which I am not the doer. When I feel like giving a pence to the poor person, and immediately I feel a pride is just welling up within me. Oh, see how compassionate I am. The other persons are just passing away. It is I who give that pence. That it speaks of the ego. Just really, if you think that the love which emanated from your heart, which made you really give something to that poor person, can you say that this is a love something which you have cultured? It was there in our heart. Without that, the creation will never be sustained. The mother has that love implanted in the heart. The father has that love implanted in that heart. Whenever we see any child who is not biologically related with us, we feel a parental love. That love is implanted. Our genes are altruistic. That speaks of the programming of the divine with which we have been born. He has programmed that love. So be an instrument. Don't just have a feeling of the doer, that love is mine. It's not yours. You are just the instrument in the hand of the divine. Through that love, it is the divine who is working to sustain his creation. You are just the instrument. So from that, expectation will come. And as the expectation doesn't come, there is no question of censoring or praising. So that's the basic idea behind this sloka. And when there is no question of praise or censoring, your language also changes. You relate to the person always in the present tense. You don't bring the past, and you never relate as per your expectations in the future. Just deal with him as he is in the present. Shadhur Rag, Jolet Dag. Even there was some situation for which you lost your temper in the past, that need not be the mode operandi, that always now, as such a thing happened, I have to behave with him always with that anger, with that disbelief. It has happened, that's past. Everyone is evolving. So he is evolving. When I relate to him at the present, just take him as he is and deal with it. So there's no question of praising or blaming. Just take him as he is and relate to the world. And that's what Sthita Pragya constantly does. So his language is never full of allegories, nor he is full of hatred. He deals with the world in a very equipoise manner. So that's how he speaks. So next, in the next 6 verses, the Lord will speak how he sits. Sits means that when he's residing in a place, that what are the traits which finds expression through his life? That when he has came down from the samadhi, but at the same time, he's not immersed in samadhi, but he's not doing anything as such. He's not interacting with the world. He is just relaxing, you see, just sitting in the default mode. That in our default mode, what happens? We find that when I am busy with my work, I think if I could have got some free time, I would have just sat down and most probably meditated or relaxed. And then I find that my mind won't allow me. And then I find the biggest enemy is my mind, that so many thoughts come, desires come, and it won't allow me to just remain seated. So for a man of realization, he may be in deep samadhi, as Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that while you are singing, you cannot stay in ni for long. Ni means very high tune, high pitch. While singing, we may go to the high pitch now and then, but we have to come down. That he used to say, ni te beshikhon thaka jaye na. You have to come down. So when he comes down, when he is not in samadhi, and he is as such not in any way interacting with the world, he is just with himself. What's the traits which finds expression through his life? So in the next 6 verses, that's what Bhagavan will be describing. So the 58th sloka, let us just start and we'll go to the discussion gradually. Yada sangharate chayam kurmongani va sarvashah indriyani indriyarthebhya stasya pragya pratisthita. So when you will find that it's the example of kurma. Kurma is tortoise. Kurmanganiva sarvasha. When you try to heat a tortoise, so it will immediately withdraw its senses. It will go inside the shell. So whenever it finds it is in danger, immediately it withdraws itself. For us, the entire world, the sensory world is out there. When the objects of senses are out there, our reflex, even we don't have to decide, we find that our senses are moving out. Just when the child is moving around, you need not have to give in the hand of the child a chocolate. Keep in its vicinity some chocolate. The moment it sees it, it will be going towards it. So, but for a man of realization, the reflex changes. Instead of being drawn towards it, you will find he is being repelled, just the way the tortoise withdraws its limbs within its shell. Similarly, a man of this realization, one who is established in his own pragya, in his own wisdom, he withdraws his senses from their objects, just as a tortoise withdraws its limbs into itself, into its shell. Yada sangharate cha ayam kurma anga anganiva sarvasa. Thus, all the limbs of kurma, of the tortoise, is withdrawn. Similarly, indriyani indriyarthebhya. Seeing the objects of the senses, the indriyas, the senses, instead of going towards them, is withdrawn. When you see such a thing happening, know it for certain that such a person is established in wisdom. So today, we won't discuss it, we won't get time for discussing it in totality, just that incident in the life of Ramakrishna, which Narendranath is relating, is very important here. That Ramakrishna, during his sadhana, during his spiritual practice, he discarded all sorts of metals, like because coins, that all the coins are made of metal, dhatu, all metals. So he took a resolution, I won't touch any metals, because it speaks of kanchan, it speaks of currency, it speaks of wealth. So he used to take food in this plantain leaf, in some earthen pots, he will drink water. So he used no metals. He discarded, and this practice changed his total stimuli response conditioning. This is this fear for wealth, that it is something which may bind me. It was so ingrained, it became a nervous association. It became an association with his nerves. That's why Swami Vivekananda used to say, education is the nervous association of ideas. That an idea should enter into our nerves. It should change our stimuli response conditioning. And that's what we find in Ramakrishna. Much later, he used to say that I cannot touch metals. If I touch metal, immediately my limbs get repelled. Not only that, I feel terrible pain. Narendranath, as a young Swami Vivekananda, thought that it's an exaggeration, that he has renounced wealth, but touching metal gives a pain, like a scorpion has bitten him. How can it be? It's not true. So to test Ramakrishna, what Naren did when Ramakrishna was not in his room, he kept a coin below the mattress. Now, the mattress is not a thick mattress. That also we should have to say. In India, it's as a tropical climate, you generally have very thin mattresses. In hot, sultry weather, this thick mattress, it can be very uncomfortable. So it's a very thin. So very thin mattresses are used. So under such mattress, he kept the coin. And he was just waiting outside. He was hiding himself and waiting outside. noticing that when Ramakrishna comes in and sits on the bed, what happens? So after some time, when Ramakrishna returned and came and sat on the bed, immediately jumped up and he called his nephew Ramlal that please come and just shake off the mattress, just see whether anything is there. And the coin was found. And Ramakrishna then found that Naren is actually hiding and observing what's happening. Instead of getting angry, Ramakrishna was very glad with Naren. He told, that's how you should recognize a sadhu, a monk, a real sadhu. How? Sadhu ke dine dekhbi, rate dekhbi. See him in the daytime, see him at night. Tobe sadhuke sadhu bole chinbi. Then only recognize a sadhu as a sadhu. Because spirituality cannot be a part-time affair. It has to be 24/7. If my life has overhauled, it has to find expression throughout my days. So he was happy. And Naren was he was really surprised. He never he thought that is an exaggeration. Now he realized that this man's stimuli response condition has totally changed. The thing through which for the entire world is lured, he even when he's not consciously doing anything, it has become his reflex. Even unconsciously, his body will be repelled from that. So now you will understand. That's why we say the lives of these spiritually illumined souls, the avatars, the incarnations, is the best commentary of the scriptures. Otherwise, the scripture sometimes we don't understand. We sometimes feel it is poetic. It is just a poetic use. It is not a factual. It is just poetic. It's not poetic. It's factual. The lives show how factual it was. It do happen. The total reflex can change by the practice of pratyahara. We can totally change our reflex. Just the way you develop your muscles, you can develop your willpower. The same way. So we will take up, we need not go to the discussion still further. Let us keep this discussion again for the next class, that how it happens, how our reflex changes, how that we can develop that tremendous willpower, which is very important in this present world. This delay of the gratification is the factor which speaks of real integration of life. It's not just your IQ. The one who has the more capacity to delay their gratification. How it helps? That I am not lured by my short-term gains. I have the long-term gains in my mind. I'm not myopic. The gratification speaks of just being lured by the short-term gains at the cost of long-term gains. I am quite wise to see the long-term gains and not get lured by it. So I am not after these immediate gratifications. So this actually has implication even in our day-to-day life, not only spiritual life. And it is possible. There is a practice by which we can develop the willpower so that we are not get lured by them. So that's why we told that when we were speaking of this sthita pragya, lakshana, it's not only the lakshana, it's not only the characteristics of a realized soul, it also speaks our sadhana. That what are the practices? Now, when we try to imitate the life of a realized soul, his life is spontaneous. Whatever he does is perfect. He does it spontaneously. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, his step never falls out of rhythm. He's an adept dancer. Whenever, even unconsciously, he puts his step, it is always in rhythm. But when I try to imitate him, that becomes sadhana for me. What a realized soul does spontaneously, that when I try to imitate, that becomes sadhana. So here, all these lakshanas are not just to indicate a man of realization. It actually indicates our sadhana. So what's the sadhana here? That how to develop the willpower so that we can also develop that capacity that instead of being lured by the things which speaks of short-term gains and not the long-term gains. We are lured by the short-term gains at the cost of long-term gains. So what is the way I can overcome that? So there's a sadhana behind it. How that speaks of the development of the willpower. We will take up again in the next class. Our discussion will continue from here. Thank you all. Namaskar.